are with the Virginia Online Notary Meetup. We have a couple of experts in Virginia that's going to introduce themselves. I'm so happy to have them here today. We'll start with Lora Jarrett. Lora, introduce yourself, Lora.
Hi, I am Lora Jarrett. My business is Ann Notary LLC. I have been in business since 2013, and I actually started my business when my mother became ill and I was trying to care for her. Was doing a lot of traveling with my job, and I had to kind of end that opportunity so that I could care for her. And someone introduced me to notary, and I started learning and growing with that. And so with that, I just learned how to do loan signings, general notary work, and it just kept evolving. And when the electronic notary law was passed, I figured out how to obtain my commission. And then afterwards, Notarize contacted me through by Carol Ray to become an online notary. I did that. And even as time has gone on, continuing on to be doing notary work, I've been more so one-on-one helping people as they call me to become notaries. Tried to, with a couple of other notary peers, do pop-ups and other notary education. And even today, I've expanded. I do inspections. So I do a number of different things. And I would say my newest venture is a few years ago introducing the notary mock trial to the community, a way of teaching notaries notary law in a fun, interactive way. So that is a short recap of who I, as Am Notary, am. Thank you, Daniel, for inviting me.
And then Georgette Dilworth.
Hi, Daniel. My name is Georgette Dilworth, and I am a Virginia notary. I'm in Chester. What actually started me in the notary space is because after working for 30 years for Department of Defense, we actually went on furlough, and I think it was 2019. And I decided at that moment, when we weren't getting paid, I mean, we were off 8 weeks. I didn't have a plan B or C. And I said, I got to find something else that can carry me in case this ever happens again. So once I started doing it, I decided step out on faith, and I started doing it full time. So I also taught for notary to notary, government contracting to the notaries. And I also taught for notary nerds almost a year and a half. But I also, included trainings on government contracting, the I-9 verifications. Let's see. I think I did try to cover up, but still it's kind of rough. And that's kind of, me in a nutshell. So I was able to and I did do grant training. So I was able to bring my skill sets and then, move forward in the notary space. I think I'm going on maybe 5 years, and hey, I love it and I wouldn't go back. Thank you for inviting me.
And now Jacqueline Phillips.
Hello, Daniel, panel. Thank you for having me today. Jacqueline Phillips, better known as the Ron Mom. That's kind of where I live in the Ron space. I've been a notary for over 20 years. Started in as a notary for the accounting firm that I worked with, and they needed they needed a notary on staff. So started in there, did not know what I was doing. I always tell folks, yes, I read the handbook because I'm one of those rule followers, but did I understand what an acknowledgement or a jurat was? Did not know that. And took a class, 2 classes, 3 classes, because I wanted to really know what I was doing. Was presented to do loan signings, and that's when I met the National Notary Association, took their loan signing class, and started learning a little bit more about what a notarization is. Then I was presented by Carol Ray, as Laura mentioned, to do remote online notarization. So in 2016, I started my journey as the first notary at Notarize doing remote online notarization. I've done over 5,000 notarizations with online notarization. So have really niched myself in there. I've actually done more RONs than I've done in person. So that's kind of the niche, the kind of where I like to live. I'll do hopefully more RONs than in person on most days. So which is really where I like, where I enjoy doing. I've taught across the country. Montana conference was the last conference I've recently taught at the NNA, taught at the New York Notary Alliance. Just love teaching notaries how to make sure that you're doing a compliant notarization every time that you notarize a document, and have really enjoyed that. I'm also a notary ambassador, which is why I'm invited here today by Daniel. But I also do work at the National Notary as one of their hotline consultants. So if you do call into the hotline, you may get me when you call in. So I've truly enjoyed this journey. Thank you, Daniel.
Excellent. Look at all the experience you have on this panel, Lora, Georgette, Jackie. A lot of experience on this panel. So I'm going to ask some questions really quickly, and all of you can take the time to answer this. Just for general notary practices in Virginia, what are the most common mistakes you see Virginia notaries making, and how can they avoid them? Anyone can answer.
I'm going to start with that question because recently I've talked a lot about this, and that is forgetting to put the seal on the document. I think sometimes notaries get in such a hurry that they, especially if they're doing loan signings, they're not carefully looking at all of the pages, making sure that the page does need to be notarized and have a seal on it. And in that rush to get from one to the other, which I sometimes call chasing dollars, they fail to properly notarize, and they don't understand sometimes in just the seal itself, not having that seal on all of the documents, that could have some after effect. And I'll allow Georgette and Jackie to even chime in on that, because I'm sure you've seen it.
I think I would say probably not returning documents when they're supposed to, keeping them for a long time. And I've actually had to go behind another notary to, for the mobile notarization, because either they didn't show up or they were very rude. So I don't know if that's considered a mistake, but I would say just really not taking the documents back on time when they're supposed to, not calling the client when you're going to meet with them. And I say a mistake is showing up in anything. Like, try to be more professional, not, come in just any old way. Be professional in the way that you dress, your hairstyle, everything. Just try to be professional.
I have to say that working at Notarize, I saw a lot of notaries doing notarizations. And then, of course, working at the NNA hotline, getting the phone calls in. And the main thing that notaries don't understand is, what is a notarial act? Do you have the words of acknowledged before me? Do you have the words subscribed before me? Or does the document just have notary public, seal? And then notaries don't understand that there's just more than just signing a document and stamping a document. You need to have a full notarial certificate in order to notarize a document. I call it when you went to school, there was a paper that you had to write, right? It had a title, the opening paragraph, your middle paragraph, your closing paragraph, all your footnotes. Well, the same thing happens with your notarization. You have your venue. So that's the top, or your title. And then you have your notarial act. So you need to look for the word acknowledged, subscribed, and sworn before me. And then you need to have all the body. You need to have the name of the signer, the date of the notarization. And then you have your ending. You have your signature where you're putting your mark on it. And then your footnote could be your stamp. So if you have all those things, when you're finished with your notarial portion, you've got a complete notarization. And if notaries could just break it down in their mind every time that you're notarizing a document, what are the things that are required, and just kind of like rattle it off. Like I when I was teaching it, I would teach it, put your hands up and 10 things that are required for your notarization. And I would say the first thing is your venue. The second thing is your notarial act. Next is the signer's name. The next is your date. Then you have your signature, then your seal. And what's included in your seal? Your commission number, your commission expiration. Of course, with remote online notarization, we needed to add that you need to have that footnote that you did with online notarization. So if you can come up with different things to help you remember, even if it's just using your fingers, or you keep a note card in your bag, in your notary tool bag, because all of us take our notary bag with everything in it. Keep things that will remind you of the things that you're responsible for. And your notarial duty is really, at the end of the day, that notarial act. If you've done that correctly, everything else can be fixed.
I think another thing that's important as well is, as you grow and develop as a notary and you do different loan signings or general notary work for other companies, you more so than anyone know what your shortcoming is, the things you keep forgetting, the things you question. And to Jackie's point, those are the things you should be focusing on, especially to make sure you have notes on. If you know, oh gosh, I can't remember if I read the correct wording or if I understood the correct wording, make sure you make some notes so that you know what the wording should look like, so that you don't get like Everloan signing trying to figure it out, or guessing, or just assuming. And all of these things help to perfect you along the way to become a better notary.
Yeah, very, very good. Good answers. What do you think? What do you think is the most important legal updates that Virginia notaries should be aware of?
$10. I like more money. I like more money. I like more money. So $10 for Notarial Act. I think that's one of the biggest, wonderful updates that we had for 2024 that I've truly enjoyed. It was nice to charge my first $10 for my Notarial Acts, and like I'm getting up to the big dogs now here.
What was it previously?
$5 per Notarial Act.
So y'all doubled your income.
We doubled our income. We sure did. So
I think I want to piggyback off of Jackie when she was talking about the Notarization Act, and how I think in July when they went to the General Assembly and they said that we can no longer do, I guess, the wills, I guess the trust, and I thought there was two things that actually passed and one thing that didn't. I was going to see if I can find it, but I think that was it for me.
When you say you can't no longer do the trust or the wills, that's electronically, right?
Electronically.
But you can do it traditionally.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. And then I think another big update, because I told you I live in the RON space. When most of the platforms started, if you are familiar with remote online notarization, to identify a signer in Virginia, there's 3 ways to identify the signer, right? So we have credential analysis, where the ID is looked at by a third party to make sure that there's a ID that's acceptable. Then we have biometrics, where it's that selfie that most of the platforms have gone to the state and gone through their attorneys and make sure that that is correct per our state's law. And then, of course, the next one is knowledge-based authentication. So that is where the signer is asked those 5 questions. They have to answer those 5 questions in 2 minutes. And they have to, if they are not able to answer it, then I believe it's 3 of the 5, or correct me if it's 4 of the 5 of the questions have to be thrown out, and they have to get another set of questions. And if they don't answer that second set of questions, the platform is required to lock them out for 24 hours. So most of the platforms had already gotten this approved by the state, but nothing was in writing that us notaries could actually refer back to in our handbook or in the electronic laws for notarization. So that is something that also was added in for the 2024 years. And it even said that it was retroactive, because they ended up finding out that, yes, it was great that the platforms had all discussed this with the attorneys, and they've all come to a concession that KBA would be that how to answer those questions, but nothing was actually written into the law. So they had to write that into law, and then make that retroactive for all of us notaries that had used KBA for the last 7 years to notarize documents. So that's another big update for 2024 from the online side of it as well.
And in Virginia, how much can you charge per RON notarization?
So $25 per notarial act.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always going to remember we say notarial act, right? It's not per notarization. It's not just flat $25. So if you get a document and it has a sworn statement and it has an acknowledgement, your sworn statement, because we can do oath affirmations in the state of Virginia, that is one notarial act. And then if it has an acknowledgement wording, that's an additional notarial act. So that's when you will charge that $25. So remember that this notarial act is not per signature, because in my notarization, I can also add, let's say if it's a husband and a wife, 2 signers, I can do one notarial certificate, put both of their names, but I'm required to identify both signers. So that's a notarial act for the wife, notarial act for the husband. So I can charge $25 for each person, even though I'm only putting one certificate on the document. So always think notarial act. Who am I performing my notarization for? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and make sure that you charge accordingly. And of course, it's up to 25. You don't have to charge the full 25.
Here's another question I get a lot of times from Virginia notaries. Virginia is known as the origin, the leader in remote online notarization. Your state is known as the leader. So what challenges, like because I'm a traditional notary, and I know a lot of traditional notaries where they go out and meet face-to-face, but they want to transition into the remote online notarization. What challenges will they face, and how can they overcome them?
Well, I'm going to say education is their number one challenge, because if you don't understand electronic notarizations and you just dive, as some would say, feet first into it, you're going to find yourself in a very uncomfortable space.
Mm-hmm.
And alongside that, as I think about our beginning, as Jackie and I started off with Notarize, I mean, I can only laugh sometimes about just how we looked at the whole process and how, even though we were instrumental in helping them evolve along the way, what it was versus what it is today. And even for those actually starting today, you really have to know what you're doing. As Jackie stated earlier, you have to read the electronic notarization laws as they're written. You have to understand what Virginia will or will not allow. I mean, I've heard some people say, well, I just did it. Well, what did you do? And did you feel comfortable that you did the right thing? It's like Jackie even said earlier, education. You gotta have the education. And once you have the education and you feel comfortable, it's okay then to actually, ask questions along the way of those who have been doing it, and not just assume. But for me answering that question, I just say education first.
I want to add, especially with me on the platform I'm on, what allows us to sign, for all the states is that full faith and credit clause. But one of Daniel, you're in or did you say you're in Indiana? So what we've been facing is, like, sometimes these power of attorneys will come in, and now they're saying that we have to have some type of certificate of conformity, which means we're no longer able to do it. I think New York is like that, and Indiana, and I think New Hampshire. So do you know about that?
The powers of attorney?
Yeah. So like when we do we've done the RON, but we're finding that there's 3 states so far that are saying, oh, they come back, oh, now they want you to send this certificate of conformity, which we don't do. So now if anything comes in and it's for, I think, Indiana, New Hampshire, or New York, we are now able to do it. I think also in New York, we're no longer the affidavits, because they also want that certificate of conformity. So I think you definitely have to keep up with, the state's laws, especially if we're signing for all the different states.
Anything you want to add, Jackie?
You'd have to, we have gone through so many different things. Remind me of the question again, Daniel.
Yeah, it was, how would you help someone who's a traditional notary, that means they go out and meet people face to face, transition to become a remote online notary in Virginia?
Lora kind of already said it. Education. You have to have your foundation. You got to know what a acknowledgement is. You need to know what a jurat is. And when you're doing online notarization, now you're going to be presented with notarial certificates for other states. So one of the ones that other states have is a signature witnessing, whereas a Virginia notary cannot do signature witnessing. So what are you going to do when you're presented a certificate that is not compliant to Virginia? Do you know enough to recognize it, one, and then explain to the signer that's not a certificate that I can do in my state, and these are your choices? And does your platform allow you to add in a jurat certificate or acknowledgement certificate if that's the route that the signer chooses to go? So being educated on what your certificates are, knowing what notarizations you can do is going to be the main thing. And then after that is just tech. You have to be a little bit of techie. I've often said this. If you are still using an iPhone 6, don't think you're going to come in here and do remote online notarization. You're not even wanting to move up with technology. The technology changes so often with remote online notarization. A platform could be one way 1 week, and then they do updates, and you have to be ready to roll with those tech issues. And I've told notaries, like, that's one of my questions, like, what kind of phone are you using? Like, and it sounds like it's such a stupid question, but if you're not a techie person, like, you're like, I want to still be my flip phone, you're not going to do online notarization because it's a lot of tech things. Like, you run into tech issues. The signers might be older, or the signers can be younger and they're not techie enough, but this is the only way that we can get this notarization done because they might be overseas. So know that you're going to have to be a little bit of tech. And am I saying that if you're older, you can't do it? No, I actually had older people at Notarize in their 70s who don't have a problem with tech and could do a remote online notarization. So age is not the issue, is whether you have it within yourself to just keep up with the technology.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I just was on a meetup prior to this one, and it had a person that was the owner of a signing company, and she called a notary down, she said, down in Miami, and asked, hey, do you have a scanner? That, because you have to scan the documents back. Yes, I have a scanner. And that person, that notary, in their mind, this was very apparent, in their mind says, she told her she had a scanner, but in her mind, she's thinking, I have access to a scanner at Kinko's, at FedEx. I have access. So she did the signing at 2 p.m. She didn't get finished scanning till 10:30 last night of that one. So you're so right. You have to keep up with the technology. If a signing company asks you, do you have your scanner? I recommend the signing companies to ask, well, what kind of scanner do you have? I like, Jackie, when you say, what kind of phone do you have? Because some people think scanner is, I could just take a picture of it on my phone and I can just stand there taking 100 pictures on my phone and not really understanding that whole thing. So that's so powerful what you said. Keeping up with the technology if you're going in, that's so powerful. What advice would you guys give new notaries in Virginia looking to build a successful notary business?
I don't think we can say it enough. Education, education, education. Like, find yourself a mentor. I just recently had a notary just call me 2 weeks ago, and her and I sat down for 2 hours and just talked. She's like, I've called 8 notaries in the area trying to just get with other notaries and finding other people just to like to be able to bounce things off of each other, right? Like I've run into this. What do you think, right? We have the National Notary Association, which is great. I tell every notary they should have hotline, definitely their first year, because if you don't know what you don't know, right? And I'd rather you ask than guess, or not ask at all and then get in some kind of legal issue later on. So go ahead and pay the $80 and have it at least for the first year. And let me tell you, it will pay for itself. I mean, am I at the stage of life that I probably don't have to pay for it? Yes. I have enough Daniels, Lora's, different notary friends across the United States that I could call and say, hey, I'm doing a Ron for your state. What should I be looking for, right? So, but as a notary in Virginia, educate yourself, get yourself a good notary buddy that knows what they're doing. We have a lot of COVID notaries, and I'm going to be very careful about saying that, because there's some
what's a COVID notary?
A COVID notary. So the notaries that all came in because everybody can make $100,000 in a year during COVID. And then they all decided to become experts at being a notary. And I found that some of them were not experts. They were teaching notaries incorrect information, and it just perpetuated all the bad stuff that already happens in Virginia when we're not educated. So we had an uneducated notary now teaching more uneducated notaries. So that was an issue. But and like I said, there's good COVID notaries, and there's ones that did not do well, but education is going to be your key. Do you know what a notarization is?
Anyone want, Georgia, do you want to?
I'm just going to agree with what Jackie said, just education. And hopefully there are groups that you can join. They even have Clubhouse. And when I first started, when I first went, I was nervous, and I was like, oh, I hope I'm doing everything correct. I read my handbook, and, I thought that I just had it together, and I'm just like, I ain't gonna lie, I was nervous, but it went well. And the first person I actually notarized, she calls me every year because her documents have to be done for the school year. But I just did a lot of reading, and then I went on YouTube, looked at videos, and then some of the groups where people are communicating, you learn things. And I tell you, and Jackie, you probably heard me, I be calling the hotline. I will call them in a hot minute. So there are things that, come up that you're like, okay, let me make sure, because I'm not going to do anything unless I call the hotline. So just really reading, and I think, Jack, I don't know if you remember in the group, there was a lady. She was part of the assembly, the General Assembly. I guess the notaries went, and they're the ones who were responsible for getting that, $5 that went to 10. Do you remember her name? I'm going to look on my phone so you guys will know, because they have a lot of good information that they put out.
I think, was it Juanita, Laura?
Juanita.
Exactly
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yep.
You want to add anything, Laura, to the question was, what advice would you give new notaries looking to build a successful notary business in Virginia?
When you read that question initially, the first word that popped out to me was successful. Because what do you define as success? Do I want to be a $50,000 business? Do I want to be a $100,000 business? How much am I willing to invest to get myself to where I want to be? If you don't even know that answer, to me, you're just riding in the wind, don't even know where you're going, how you're going to get there. And there's a danger to that, because you're going to chase every opportunity that you hear of, and you're not going to be really focused on growing and learning as you should. For even me today, I hear a lot of things, and there are opportunities for notaries, and I could get really excited. But, I've got that stay in your lane approach right now. So for a new notary getting started, I think you really need to look at all the different opportunities that are out there as for you to grow as a notary. And I think you need to start at the beginning. For me, the beginning is learning how to notarize an acknowledgement, a draft. Just learning how to notarize documents properly and grow from that and build your plan from that. To me, that is the greatest thing a new notary can do for themselves, to make sure that they don't end up in trouble before they even get their feet off the ground with their business.
Very good. Very well. Let me ask you this, because Virginia, like it has been the leader in technology. So, what role do you see technology playing in the future for the notary industry, particularly in Virginia?
Can you repeat that?
What role do you see? Because since Virginia has been the leader in remote online notarization, what role do you think technology will play in the future in the notary industry, and in particularly in Virginia? I know these questions are just so great.
Well, it's kind of goes back to what Georgette was saying earlier, right? So we have Florida that's ahead of us now with being able to do wills, codicils, and trusts. So we're kind of behind on that now, right? Yes, we were the forefront, but we haven't taken the time to update our laws to what technology allows us to do. We have the video now, right? So if you're doing a trust or you're doing a last will and testament, now you can ascertain that person's demeanor by the video, just like we do in person. But now we not only have it in person, but we have this video that we can also refer back to. So how do we allow the technology to be there to be able to do the last wills, trust, testaments, and knowing that those videos are now part of the notary's journal? It's not just this the piece of paper, just the paper journal. We have the video that's that additional layer of security in the whole process. So how does Virginia keep moving forward that we are allowing these additional documents? Like we said, there's other states that allow it already. Indiana, one of them, Florida, another one, Nevada, another one. And there's like 7 of them. So we need to stay up, just like there's still a few states that still don't allow online notarization, or we have California who's passed it, but it's not till 2030, right? So they still have another 5 years before notary in California can even do online notarization. So where does Virginia now come in to make sure that these last 3 documents that we can't notarize electronically are now allowed into our laws? I think that's where Virginia needs to shorten that gap now for us.
You guys said that you just got the pay raise that was passed through your legislation, right? How did that work? Did you guys, were you guys the lobbyists? Were you guys the one that pushed that, or how did that work?
Some of that was us, right? I know Laura and I actually went and met with the director of the Secretary of State's there in Virginia, and Laura had actually written a list of things that we would like to see happen for the 2024 legislation. And I know that it was taken into consideration because we did get some of it passed. And so it's not just 1 or 2 voices, but how many voices can we all together make our voices heard for those changes that need to happen? So it's not going to be just the Loras or the Georgettes or the Jacquelines or the Juanitas. It's everyone either sending. I think the biggest thing is just getting to our Secretary of State's office. Yes, we can also get to our senators and such, but they also need to know that we're there. At the end of the day, Secretary of State's who's going to give us what our direction is going to be. So we need to let them know that these are the things that we're seeing, the short gaps, especially for Georgette, Lora, myself, even Daniel, as we are educators and we're hearing it from notaries. What things do we need to see that need to happen in Virginia to make sure that we're having compliant notarizations every time that a document is notarized?
That's why I like these type of forums, because you guys went to your legislation and you got some things passed in regards to the benefit of notaries. And a lot of notaries in your state probably don't even know. They don't even know that you went over there, you're advocating for notaries, and they don't know how that process works. And this is a good forum to help educate notaries on how that process works, because businesses, they really, do you know, like, who's your North Carolina, what do you know what their fee is for notarization, per notarization in North Carolina?
She's gonna look
I
it
see
up.
Jackie looking it up,
Yeah.
what their fee is, because I want to give you an example of how powerful that is.
It looks like it's $10 if I'm looking at it correctly.
Yes,
Either
it is.
Mr. Oath is $10.
Yeah. So just having someone, a professional in your group, going to now, you didn't hire lobbyists or anything like that, right?
I think that if I'm correct, I think Juanita, she did know someone that was a lobbyist, and they were able to, give them their information and their concerns. And so because I had a conversation with her, and they were able to discuss, I think, those three things about us getting the increase. And then it was the issue with the wills. I believe the biggest reason they said we're not able to do it anymore is because there could be, I guess, fraudulent things happening, which could happen in any document. But for some reason, it was very close. It was just like one vote that I guess said no. And so I did put it in my groups and, of course, my page for people to know. But you're right, a lot of people don't know, just like the increase. As soon as that increase came out, I'm letting everybody know. But how do you get the word out if you don't have these kind of panel meetings?
Especially since our handbook didn't get updated this time either, right?
No.
Normally, as soon as we have an update in law, we have an updated handbook. This is the first time in years that we've had an update in law, and we have not had an updated handbook. So like Georgette said, it's going to be these panels, us talking about it on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, on however notaries connect now, for them to know that we got a raise, like Daniel said.
Yes, my understanding is the intent is to produce an updated version. However, we don't know how long that will take. And like Jackie alluded to, if they don't get, I want to step back and say, it's not just getting the information, it's getting it from reputable sources.
Yes.
There is a lot of information out there. And you just, for us, part of our job is to try to help people to understand everything that you see, read, hear is not absolutely correct. And Jackie made a great point earlier when she talked about that, because, people are being taught, they're being taught incorrectly. They're going out here feeling confident because of the education. And unfortunately, some people are being charged a lot of money for this incorrect education when they could come out on a forum such as this and get it for free. How do we communicate to these individuals that there are other ways to learn and grow and get what you need and feel confident without I feel like chasing the dreams of, if you do this, this, and this, I can give you X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And then they find out in the end, after they pay the money, that they didn't get what they thought they were supposed to get. A lot of really, and it goes back to these new notaries wanting to be successful, is knowing what you want to do. If you tell me I want to be a notary, then I'm thinking you just want to learn how to do general notary work and notarize documents. But that doesn't mean if I train you on that you become the professional to go out there and do loan signings. And because you think you know how to do notary work, you can take on a loan signing appointment and go out there and get it done. So I feel like we have to be clear and concise in our conversations to these notaries. And in turn, they have to be clear and concise to us. Case in point, I had someone call me and said, I want to learn how to do notary work. I said, well, tell me why you want to be a notary. Well, I just heard you make a lot of money doing notary work, and I need a side job that can give me extra income. I said, so tell me where your passion lies in becoming a notary. And they were like, well, I just want to make more money. I said, well, I'm going to be very honest with you. You can make money, but you're going to have to do a lot of learning. I said, there's a very high price to pay if you get out here doing notary work and you don't know what you're doing. Like, you could lose your license for 20 years. You could cause someone to lose the points that they had contracted to if you don't notarize their document correctly in a loan signing. There are so many after effects that could occur if you don't notarize correctly. So I sent her back. I said, I want you to really think about why you want to be a notary. I said, and then come back to me. Because I don't mind helping her, but I don't want to set her up for failure. And neither do I want to waste my time, because my time is valuable too. And that's the thing. If I'm going to give you that free training and help you along the way, I want it to mean something. So I may take a different approach than some others may take. And I may not be out there just advertising all over the place. But I feel like that one-on-one experience that I may have with someone, if we go forward and they decide that they really want to become a notary and want to go to the next place, then I've added value. And I've not, and they, and we've been fair to each other.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Any questions that you guys get a lot asked by Virginia notaries that come up often?
I'm going to give one. You and I talked about it a little bit, Daniel, is loan signing agents, right? Because Virginia is one of those states that could be considered a, CRESPA, where you have to have that additional insurance in order to collect funds. So a lot of notaries are like, they're not, what do you mean that I can't collect a check while I'm at a notarization and I'm a loan signing agent? I've done this for years. I get that a lot. I've been doing this for years. So it's kind of like, if you've been trained, you've got the light now that says, okay, you don't have the correct insurance. Here it is in our laws saying that if you don't have this additional insurance, you shouldn't be collecting funds, because if you do get caught, then you lose your license and then you can't do any loan signings. And if that's how you're making money, then you're going to be in trouble. So what does that mean? So for me as a notary, I don't want to pay the extra $7,500 every 2 years for that insurance. And do I make enough money that I could do that? Yes, but it's easier for me to save that $7,500 and rather tell the title company, and most title companies will do this. Hey, the signer is got monies that they need to bring to the table. Can we have them wire them? They say yes, that's great. I'm not touching the funds gets wired, and it's even better. But if they say no, the signer doesn't want to wire, they don't want to pay the wiring fee, they want to just go ahead and do that check, that cashier's check, that's great. Can you add an additional label in the package? They're like, no problem. I've never had any pushback from it. They'll add the extra label. We all carry notary bags. I have extra UPS envelopes, extra FedEx envelopes in my bag. I package it all together for the signer. And we're notaries that been doing loan signing. We know the closest UPS store. We know the closest FedEx store, or we know the closest Parcel Plus store that the signer can get a receipt. I'll package it up, tell them, here's your check. Here it is. Go ahead and drop it off. You have 3 days to get that there. I will suggest you either get it there today or tomorrow, and then get a receipt and keep that receipt for yourself. Because I like what I do. I'm a full-time notary, so I can't afford to lose my license. Like Lora says, 20 years is a long time for me to lose my license. And yes, I could go back into accounting, but is that what I really want to do? No, I really love what I do. I love being a notary. So I'm going to make sure that those little nuances that you get taught along the way, that you just don't push it aside, because I'm telling you, the one time you push it aside is going to be the one time that it's going to bite you in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought that up, because our state, Indiana, is a title producer like state like Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
and there are certain requirements that they have. When they first came out, that was in 2005. I was doing real estate full time, and then they made a requirement that you had to have a title producer's license. And so I went and took the class, and the class, as I remember, and this was in 2005, it was like $900 to take the class. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And I took the class, and the class, there was no handouts. There's no, here's a book, we're going to, no, it was just a lady in, she had on one of those Fila workout shirts, sitting on a bench and talking for 10 hours.
Hmm.
And I said, this is the biggest waste of time. The people that were lobbying for that requirement to have a title producer's license was the local land title association, and they were getting 100% of the profit from that. And then I talked to Jackie a little bit about this, and I looked into it. Virginia had a very similar, they put the price of the class way up for non-members.
Exactly.
That's the key. Non-members, which means if you are an independent contractor looking to take a class, you have to pay this exorbitant fee, but they will sponsor you on. When they sponsor you, they pay a fraction of that fee and get the tax benefits from it. You do the hard part. You take the class. So and this is one of the reasons why I am sponsoring this meetup and that type of thing, because by the first of the year, I'm looking to have a pre-licensed class specifically for Virginia notaries. Now, of course, in Virginia, the guidelines say that you have to take an exam. I think it's a proctored exam. And in the exam, it has to have questions like, which of the following is considered an encumbrance or of the property? Or what is the purpose of a deed and trust? None of that relates to notaries. But I want to do it like I've done in Indiana, create a course that is for Virginia notary signing agents, but with a study guide, so that if you look through the study guide and you pass the study guide, you will pass the exam, which makes it easy. And here's a kicker, at a fraction of what they're trying to charge you, because what happens is when you take their class, they say, some of those title companies say, if you take our class and we sponsor you, you can only work for us. And they put their thumb on you like you are like an employee. That, I think that's so, I think in years that's going to be so outlawed and so illegal. But that's where we're going with this. So I'm just going to start. Any other questions? We got like 4 minutes, because I have the tax guy here. He's going to tell us, you're not going to want to miss his presentation. He's going to tell us, because there's some new laws on the books about how businesses should be operating their business and what they should be reporting. And he's going to go over some of that and how you can get prepared for that for next year. But is there any other questions that you have? We got about 3 minutes. Any other questions you have that you think Virginia notaries should know about running their business? Ron?
I have a question, Daniel. So that about the pre-license course,
Yes,
once
ma'am.
you put that out and we pass it, so you're saying once we pass it, is that something that has to be run through Secretary of State here as well? And if we pass it, that means we can collect funds?
Yes. What that means is right now, the way it's set up, most everybody goes through the Virginia Land Title Association, which they're set up to give these questions, like I said, like which document typically contains the covenants, conditions, and restrictions for notaries don't deal with that kind of stuff. So why do we have to pass all that? They make you pass that, in order for you to have a title producer's license. And then if you are sponsored through a title company, they put their thumb on you and say, you can only do this through my company because I sponsored you. If you take our class, like it is here, nobody has their thumb on you. You can work for all the title companies in Virginia and say, I have my own license. I don't have to, I'm signing a non-compete agreement. You get the tax benefits instead of they get the tax benefits. And now that helps you diversify. You are truly an independent contractor. You're not like a quasi employee of that title company, if that makes sense. Yeah, then you can collect funds because all they want, all the department, and it goes through the Virginia, I think they call it Bureau of Insurance.
Mhm.
I might be wrong about what that, but that's where it goes through. You'll be registered under there. It's an insurance license. So if you ever had an insurance license, you have to disclose that, but it'll be run under that. But it's your business. Now you're more in control of your business. If that makes sense. Thank you for watching part 1 of the Virginia Notary Meetup that we have online. We try to do that every year. We got a part 2 coming. Definitely, if you like the content, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the content or to our podcast. And we hope to see you next week for part 2 of the Virginia Notary Online Meetup.